Garuti, and also one of the hosts at the Return podcast. And I have my co-host here, Asia.
Asia Kirkendall, CFO at Kuriti.
Awesome. So, Asia, today we're going to be talking about a particular subject which is really interesting, right? One that is a frightening moment, for a lot of investors and people in general. Um, According to BlackRock, a survey found that nearly 25% of retirement plan administrators plan to include alternative investments within a year. Things like private equity, private credit, real estate, hedge funds, etc. But what they are not doing is they're pulling out of the traditional assets like stocks, bonds, because things are looking shaky. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts on that?
So the key word for me is retirement plan administrators. And so for me, when you talk about retirement planning, people talk about financial education. That is a huge umbrella. Okay. We're talking
Yeah,
about how we make money, how we spend money, credits and loans, legacy planning, and then retirement planning. Okay.
yeah,
And so, particularly in the United States, when I was a financial advisor, short lived when I realized they were just selling insurance products and not actually helping people. That didn't last long. But one of the
right,
takeaways from my time there is the way they look at retirement. They call it a three legged stool. Here in America, we have a three legged stool approach to retirement.
mm,
One leg is Social Security,
mm,
the second leg is a pension, and then the third leg is 401k. Those are the traditional methods that people lean on when the inevitable happens and you're no longer able to trade your physical time and labor to make money. Because at a certain point, you're not going to be wanting to get up and work every day to maintain your basic needs, okay? So you ask how I feel about it, and I start by giving that background because two of those legs will not be here much longer, okay?
right,
So the first one we're going to talk about is Social Security. The Social Security Administration estimates that by the year 2034, we're talking about 9 years from now, that we will not have enough revenue coming into the Social Security fund to pay out for everybody who they're supposed to be paying out to.
that's
They,
wild.
they estimate 80% is all we'll be able to cover at that time. And I have a feeling that's probably a high estimate, okay?
So they're not gonna give my money.
They're not going to give you your money. Not you. You too young, okay? By the time you get up there, it's not going to be there.
What's really scary though is that our parents might not even get their money, which is about. I thought it was gonna be longer down the
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
I thought it was me, but it seems like our parents might even run out.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I feel like one of the approaches, when we talk about the government's approach to maintaining the financial needs of the society as a whole, they have the luxury of being able to kick the can down the road. We see it every time they print money, every time they bail out these banks, every time they raise the debt ceiling. They're willing to push the problem into the future and let somebody else deal with it. And so, because they can print money, they have that luxury of pushing that problem out to the future. But for individuals, I feel like we really have to be serious about finding these alternate retirement approaches because it's in their benefit for us to stay ignorant to this stuff. So what we're doing here, like we said earlier about doing these radical actions for good, call me crazy, but it's not so radical to me to think about investing in places outside of the public stock market where who owns that, who runs that, who controls the
Right,
rules and stuff around
right.
that. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is looking pretty shaky right now when it comes to the stock and bond market. A lot of those things are controlled by people who have their different agendas, and a lot of people are not buying into it. So, what is that going to do? What is investment fear going to do? What it was really interesting though is that a lot of investors are just not ready for the complexity and the risk when it comes to alternative investments. And so, one of the things that people really need to understand is that, like with any investment, there's a certain amount of risk. When you invest your money in the stock market, there's a certain amount of risk. Even though over time, right, your money will grow. according to indexes, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of risk when it comes to jumping into alternative investments. And when again we talk about alternative investments, we're talking about everything from private equity to real estate to private credit, those type of alternative investments, things that are not necessarily just um, you know the stock or bond market. Those are the type of things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Hey
So
Marvin,
I,
we got you on here. You know what I'm saying? Like I see your camera. Marvin joined us, other co-hosts.
like you're getting settled in.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll let Marvin get settled in.
So what I was gonna dive in is, again, you know my approach. I love historical context and looking at the bigger picture and learning from how we got here. So to give a one more supporting idea on why we need to take investing and retirement planning into our own hands and not just rely on Social Security, not just
Right.
rely on 401k. So back to pensions, okay?
Yeah.
So pensions were a thing of the past, essentially. They started with the unions and the factory workers, where the employers would say, hey, if you guys are going to be loyal to us, if you're going to work for our company for 30 years, we'll make sure that once you retire, we'll take care of you and we'll pay you a guaranteed pension indefinitely until you're out of here. Okay.
Right.
So that incentivized people to be loyal, to work for their companies, and they were in return taken care of in their retirement age. And so what happened was in the 1980s, the company, it was Johnson and Johnson, they had a advisor come in to look at their financials, particularly their retirement plan, and figure out how they can save money on taxes.
Right.
So the 401k is a section in the tax code that these advisors found helping Johnson and Johnson, and basically what they realized was the company could get some tax savings and some tax benefits if they shifted the ownership from the company to invest, make sure there was enough money to pay out, shift the responsibility from the company to the employee. So now with this 401k, they get a tax break. They're going to match you money, so you get an extra money in there. But now you have to have enough financial literacy to decide where you're going to invest this money,
Right.
what stock bucket you're going to pick, and just hopefully the market is up whenever you're ready to retire. Because if you retire at the wrong time, that 40, you go look at that account, it's going to make you sick.
Right.
And so the idea of shifting the ownership from the companies to the employees is how we got into this place of that three-legged stool. Social Security's done. For pensions, I haven't seen one of those in a while. And so again, the radical need for us to take an alternative approach and think outside of what mainstream is telling us is the way to go. Necessary.
Marvin, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. Hi, everybody out there just joining. I couldn't echo, you know, Asia's sentiments any better. I mean, right now it is the age of alternative investments. Traditional models are not producing the same results and they're not as secure. And another thing we don't talk about too is a lot of these traditional models are tied up in employment. And just like, for example, like the government shutdown that keeps happening, it's like people's basic source of income is not even secure anymore. So it's it's tremendously essential that you have different avenues and paths and understandings to make money because we've never been in such uncertain times as we are right now. So 100% agree.
So let's keep it real. Most startups fail. I think I saw something that said the other day that 70% of companies fail, right? Within the first 5 years, which, you know, that can be tough for a lot of people. A lot of people can look at that and say, well, I invested my money, man. Like, I'm expecting a return back. Um, but the journey of any company, right, is that you follow that seed all the way up to maturity, right? And so, what are some key things that, Asia, I'll start with you. What are some key things that you think that people should be thinking about when it comes to investing in companies and alternative investments?
Yeah, and naturally, this is going to be the theme that keeps coming up about investing in what you know, investing in things that align with your personal values, because being excited and actually wanting to go down this road of investing and ownership is necessary. Like, nobody's going to force you to do this stuff. You have to have that own internal motivation to do it. And so for me, I found the best way is to find something that actually excites you up, that aligns with your values, and to use that compound effect of that excitement and the energy to keep you disciplined and motivated to do what needs to be done, even if it's not the easy thing to do.
Marvin, how about you? I love that, Asia.
Yeah, there's your individual risk tolerance, but like Asia said, passion projects. I think really what it comes down to is you have to take a pulse on what I always try to say, look 5 years ahead. What is this emerging technology system? What niche does it solve in the market? What is the why? And of course, always to me, is it ethical? Because I think those things are going to last longer. And then I think once you factor in your personal risk tolerance, your personal capital limits, then you can make an informed decision from there.
Yeah, one of the key things that I always look at when it comes to investment is diversification, right? There are certain things that I know, but then there's certain things that I don't know, but I don't keep myself from learning about them because for me, I see things as a complete vertical, right? So I can invest in AI, but I could also be investing in a car company that includes AI. And then I could be investing in a lithium company that makes the lithium that goes into the car
Yeah.
that has the AI. And then I can be investing in, a manufacturing plant that makes the car, right? That has the lithium that goes into the AI, right?
Yeah.
And so I look at things from a vertical, like what is the layers of this company, right? That they are hitting from a diversification standpoint in the company, or what are layers that can be added on to with other companies that I see there's going to be that future, right? You both kind of hit it on the head, right? Invest in the things you know, but then also invest in the things that are 5 years or 10 years in the future. It's those layers that you can layer up in your investment, your diversification of both the companies that you invest in, but then also that company, how many layers do they hit vertically
Yeah.
to go ahead and say, okay, this is a easier investment. Doesn't take away all the risk, right? But in some cases, it kind of de-risks, the future of what this looks like. So those are some of the things that I say, like, instead of putting $5,000 into one company, maybe put $500 into, a few different companies, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
To see around that interest that you have, right? To see which one is going to come out to be an emergent leader, whatever it may be. I'll give you an example. If you had just looked at Lyft and Uber when they kind of first came out, Lyft looked like it was leading the pack for a little bit. They had a Ford deal
Yeah.
and some other things going on. And then, so if you had just invested in Lyft, Uber would have came along, you'd be like, damn, you know what I'm saying? I missed out on that, right? That's a diversification. That's what diversification can do, right? You can invest in both, being a retail investor or any type of investor in this world.
How important is it to you looking at or how much historical background do you consider when you take a look at personal investing?
Well, that's something that we're going to have to discuss in our next episode because we're sitting right there at that time. But you're absolutely right. We want to look at the historical records. Now, let me just end this by saying that again, all investments carries risk because the SEC and FINRA wants us to say this. Uh, you should look at the disclosures. You look at the risk. There's inherent risk in any type of investment. If you want to look at that, look at sec.gov and FINRA.org. And we thank you for having us. Thank you for listening to us. If you have topics that you think, reach out to any one of us. This is an Instagram live right this minute. Reach out to me. I would love to hear any comments or anything you want to see in the next coming episodes.
Peace and love, everybody.
Thank you guys.